Hello, everyone, and welcome to our presentation about domestic terrorism. Our presentation will be broken up into 6 different sections. Each section will be covering an important detail or attribute in regard to domestic terrorism. The definition of domestic terrorism, just like all other forms of terrorism, is extremely complex. Domestic terrorism is defined as a violent or criminal act that are committed by individual groups. These acts are intended to intimidate civilians and governments with the goal of influencing the goals and policies of the population and government. These violent and criminal acts are harmful and dangerous to human lives. These acts are motivated by domestic ideological goals within a society, such as religion, social, political, racial, and environmental beliefs. One key component that makes domestic terrorism different than other types of terrorism is that the violent and criminal acts are not influenced by foreign influences. They are strictly domestic.
Root causes of domestic terrorism. Domestic terrorism is driven by a mix of social, political, and psychology forces. These factors motivate individuals or groups to commit violence against their own communities. Martin 2025 explains that several key root causes consistently appear across domestic terrorism cases. First, ideological beliefs play a major role. Extremist, political, radical, religious, or anti-government ideology can convince people that violence is necessary to defend their worldview. Groups like white supremacist organizations or anti-government militias often frame attacks as justified acts of protection or resistance. Second, many individuals act out of persevere grievance. They may feel marginalized, oppressed, or threatened, believing that the government, society, or another group is taking away their rights, culture, and identity. These feelings make extremist narratives more appealing and more powerful. Third, social networks and online communities can accelerate radicalization. These spaces provide reinforcement, propaganda, and peer approval. They create echo chambers where extremist ideas spread quickly and normalize violence and provide encouragement to act. Fourth is the economic and psychological factors also contribute. Personal frustration, unemployment, isolation, or mental health challenge can make someone more vulnerable to extremist message. Hoffman 2017 and Martin 25 note that these individual stressors often interact with ideology, increasing the likelihood of radicalization. Fifth, some domestic terrorists react directly to government actions or new social policies. When they persevere laws or change its government overreach or its threats to their freedoms, they may view violence as a legitimate form of resistance. Please watch this skit on the root causes with a professor and detective talking in a small setting. Welcome, class. Today we're diving into a tricky topic: domestic terrorism. It's not just random violence, it usually grows from a mix of social, political, and psychology factors.
Wait, so people don't just wake up and decide to be terrorists?
Exactly, Dave. Often, extremist ideologies, political, radical, religious, and anti government give people a reason to justify violence. They think it's necessary to protect their worldview. Groups like white supremacists and anti government militias are examples, per Martin 2025.
Hmm. So beliefs play a big part? What else?
Feelings of marginalization or oppression matters a lot. If someone thinks they're right or culture or under threat, they might see violence as a way to fight back. And social network, both in person, online, can make this worse by giving validation or encouragement, per Huffman 2017.
Got it. So ideology plus social pressure? Anything personal?
Absolutely. Economic struggles, unemployment, frustration, or mental health challenges can make someone more vulnerable to extremist messages. Per Crenshaw 2011 and Martin 2025, some even act against government policy they see as overreaching. Per Huffman 2017.
Wow, it's like a puzzle. Lots of pieces fit together before violence happens.
Right. And that's why prevention matter. Understanding these root cause helps causes helps communities and law enforcement create strategies that stop attacks before they happen, not just react afterward. Domestic terrorism is complex, but by looking at the social, political, and psychology pieces, we can build safer, smarter solutions.
Good afternoon, class. Domestic terrorism refers to the violent acts committed within the United States to intimidate or coerce civilians or influence government policy. This presentation highlights three examples of domestic terrorism. That'll be the Oklahoma City bombing, the Charleston church shooting, and the John Salvi attacks on abortion clinics. The Oklahoma City bombing occurred in 1995 and was carried out by Timothy McVeigh. McVeigh targeted the federal government due to extreme anti government beliefs. The attack killed 168 people and injured hundreds more. It remains one of the deadliest attacks of domestic terrorism in United States history. Next up, we're going to talk about the Charleston church shooting that happened. This happened in 2015. Dylan Roof murdered 9 African American church members during a Bible study in Charleston, South Carolina. He was driven by white supremacist ideology and stated his goal was to spark a race war. The attack was prosecuted as both a hate crime and an act of domestic terrorism. Last but not least, we have the John Salvi attacks on abortion clinics. This happened in 1994. John Salvi attacked 2 abortion clinics in Massachusetts, killing 2 people, injuring 5 others. His actions were driven by extremist anti abortion ideology and were part of a broader trend of domestic terrorist attacks targeting reproductive health clinics.
In 2018, Robert Bowers carried out the Pittsburgh synagogue attack, killing 11 people in a devastating act of anti Semitic violence. His extremist beliefs were openly expressed online prior to the attack. This incident underscored the growing danger of ideologically motivated domestic terrorism targeting religious communities. In 2022, Peyton Grandin carried out a racially motivated attack at a Tops supermarket in Buffalo, killing 10 black victims. Influenced by white supremacist ideology and online extremist content, Grandin targeted a predominantly black neighborhood. This tragedy highlighted the lethal impact of racial hatred and radicalization in the digital age. In 2016, Omar Mateen attacked the Post nightclub in Orlando, killing 49 people in one of the deadliest mass shootings in U.S. history. Mateen pledged allegiance to extremist ideologies during the attack. The incident brought national attention to violence targeting the LGBTQ plus community and the risk of self radicalization.
Hi, the topic we'll be discussing is domestic terrorism and its impact on society. What is domestic terrorism? Well, when we hear the word terrorism, a lot of us think about the threats from outside our country. But domestic terrorism happens right here at home. It's carried out by people who live in the same communities as us and we're their targets. And its effects reach a lot farther than the attack itself. Domestic terrorism changes how people feel about their everyday lives. Even if you're not directly involved in an attack, it can shake a sense of safety. Schools, places we worship, places we frequently gather, community centers, we're supposed to feel safe in those environments, but suddenly it feels very vulnerable. When a certain group is targeted, like racial or religious communities, members of that group often feel singled out and unsafe, even if they live miles away from the attack. These events also impact our political climate. Instead of bringing people together, domestic terrorism often deepens and divides the area that exists. Different groups argue about what causes the attack, who's responsible, and what should be done about it. We hear it in the news nearly every time it occurs. Trust in the government can drop too, especially if people feel the attack could have been prevented. In response, governments often pass new laws or expand security measures, which leads to debates about how to balance safety with personal freedoms. Domestic terrorism has an economic consequence as well. Businesses it affects, and the areas that are close to the businesses. Tourism can drop. Cities may struggle to recover. On top of that, the government spends large amounts of money on security and counterterrorism, which means fewer resources to go to things like education, community programs, and healthcare. The media also plays a huge role. While reporting is important, nonstop or sensational coverage can increase fear. And social media, which brings a lot of misinformation, it spreads quickly. Extremist groups take advantage of this, using online spaces to radicalize people and encourage violence. Over time, if these attacks keep happening, society can start to feel numb to political violence. That is very dangerous because this is very extreme. These actions are very extreme, more normal, and can weaken the foundation of democracy. When people are afraid to vote, speak out, or even gather in public spaces, it hurts all of us because it affects all of us. In summary, domestic terrorism affects society in ways that are emotional, political, economic, and cultural. It changes how we think, how we trust, and how we live. Understanding these impacts is important if we want to build stronger and safer communities, more united. Thank you.
Domestic terrorism in the United States continues to evolve, with threats coming from a wide range of ideologically, politically, and personal motivations. Law enforcement plays a critical role in preventing these attacks before they ever reach the point of violence. After 9/11, the media and law enforcement mainly focused on homegrown terrorism linked to jihadists or those tied to religious extremism. However, discussions at that time often overlook attacks by right-wing extremists targeting minority groups, police, or government officials, even though there were several daily incidents tied to right-wing ideologies. A major part of prevention is intelligence gathering and early detection. Agencies monitor credible threats, analyze extremist trends online, and watch for behavioral indicators of radicalization. The goal is always to intervene early, before someone has the means or opportunity to carry out an attack. Another key element is collaboration through joint terrorism task forces. Federal agencies like the FBI and DHS work directly with state and local police. Information is shared in real time so that no agency operates in isolation. This coordinated approach has stopped numerous planned attacks. Community partnerships are also essential. When residents trust law enforcement, they're more willing to report concerning behavior, which is often the first warning sign investigators receive. Programs like See Something, Say Something remind the public that keeping communities safe is a shared responsibility. Law enforcement also relies on structured threat assessment models. These teams evaluate behaviors, not beliefs, to identify individuals who may be moving toward violence. When possible, police work with mental health professionals or community organizations to avert people from extremist paths. Technology also plays a growing role. Analytical tools help agencies process large amounts of information, identify trends, and respond quickly. But these tools must be used carefully to ensure constitutional policing, protect civil liberties, and maintain public trust. Ultimately, preventing domestic terrorism requires balance, strong security measures paired with respect for individual rights. It's a partnership between law enforcement, communities, and everyday citizens. When all three work together, the chances of stopping an attack before it happens increase dramatically. In the end, preventing domestic terrorism relies on early awareness, strong collaboration, and community trust. When law enforcement and the public work together, we create safer neighborhoods and stop violence before it begins. Prevention isn't just a strategy, it's a shared responsibility that protects us all.